Captain Jake Morrison stood at the large window of Orbital Station Alpha, watching the alien ship approach. The vessel was unlike anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant crystal mixed with metal, spinning slowly as it moved through space. Blue lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Jake felt nervous but excited. This was the moment Earth had been waiting for since they first heard alien voices on their radio telescope 6 months ago. The sounds had been strange at first, like music mixed with mathematics, but Earth's best scientists had worked day and night to understand the patterns. They learned it was a trade language used across the galaxy. "Captain, the alien ship is requesting permission to dock," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her control station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. "Grant them permission," Jake replied, "and signal Dr. Carter to meet us in the main conference room." Dr. Lisa Carter was Earth's top expert on alien life, even though she had never actually seen any before today. She had spent months studying the radio signals, trying to understand how these beings might think and act. Her work had helped Earth prepare for this moment. Admiral Ben Hughes arrived at the conference room. First, he was an older man with gray hair and serious eyes. As Earth's top military leader, he had been chosen to represent humanity's defense forces. He wore his best dress uniform, with all his medals polished bright. "Are you ready for this, Jake?" Ben asked, adjusting his tie for the third time. "As ready as anyone can be for meeting aliens," Jake answered with a small smile. "Lisa, how are you feeling?" Dr. Carter looked up from her tablet where she had been reviewing her notes one more time. "Terrified and thrilled at the same time," she said honestly. "We're about to make history." The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss. The aliens who walked through were nothing like the creatures in Earth's movies. The first one looked like a tall insect, but it walked upright like a human. Its skin was green and shiny, and it had 4 arms instead of 2. Large compound eyes covered most of its face. Behind the insect creature came something that looked like living crystal. It was roughly human-shaped, but seemed to be made of clear, glowing material. Light moved through its body in slow waves of different colors. The third alien was the strangest of all. It looked like a cloud of gas trapped in a special suit. The gas swirled and moved inside the transparent container, sometimes taking shapes that almost looked like a face. The insect creature stepped forward and made a series of clicks and whistles. A small device on its chest immediately translated the sounds into English. "Greetings, beings of Terra 3. I am Ambassador Zekthar of the Viridian Collective. These are my companions, shine of distant stars of the Crystal Union, and flowing wind through caverns of the Gasfolk Federation." Jake stepped forward, trying to hide his amazement at hearing an alien speak English. "Welcome to our space station, Ambassador. I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the people of our world. This is Admiral Ben Hughes of our defense forces, and Dr. Lisa Carter, our specialist in life sciences." The crystal being's light pulsed in what might have been a greeting. The gas creature swirled in its suit, and the translation device somehow turned its movements into words. "We come in peace and trade, as is the way of the Galactic Council." "Please sit down," Jake said, gesturing to the specially made chairs they had prepared. The humans had tried to design seating that might work for different types of aliens. Ambassador Zekthar settled into his chair with surprising grace. "We have come to offer your species membership in the Galactic Council. Your world has recently achieved faster-than-light communication, which qualifies you for basic membership." Dr. Carter leaned forward, her scientific curiosity taking over, her nervousness. "How many species are in the Galactic Council?" "Currently, there are over 800 member species," the ambassador replied. "Most follow similar paths of development. First comes basic space travel, then faster-than-light communication, and finally, faster-than-light travel itself." Admiral Hughes asked, "What would membership mean for us?" The crystal being, shine of distant stars, pulsed with blue light as it spoke. "Trade agreements, technology sharing, territorial boundaries, the usual benefits and responsibilities of civilization." Ambassador Zekthar activated a holographic projector that showed star maps and trade routes. "Your system would be designated as a Class 7 development zone. You would have access to basic galactic technologies and trade networks. Jake listened carefully as the aliens explained the rules of galactic society. It all seemed reasonable and fair. Earth would keep control of its own solar system while gaining access to the knowledge and friendship of hundreds of other worlds. This sounds wonderful, Jake said. We accept your offer of membership. The ambassador's compound eyes seemed to focus more sharply on Jake. Excellent. We just need to update our records with the correct information. Our database currently lists your world as Terra 3, but I assume you have your own name for it. Yes, Jake replied with a smile. We call our planet Earth. Ambassador Zekthar nodded and pulled out a small device that looked like a combination of a tablet and a crystal. I will update the galactic registry now. EARTH, correct? That's right, Jake confirmed, watching as the ambassador typed the letters into his device. For a moment, everything seemed normal. The device glowed softly as it processed the information. Then suddenly all the lights on it began flashing red. The ambassador stared at the screen, his compound eyes wide with what could only be shock. The crystal being's light turned from peaceful blue to alarmed yellow. The gas creature began swirling frantically in its suit. Is there a problem? Doctor, Carter asked, concerned by the sudden change in the alien's behavior. Ambassador Zekthar looked up from his device, and for the first time since arriving, he seemed afraid. We must return to our ship immediately. There has been an error in our records. What kind of error? Admiral Hughes demanded, his military instincts kicking in. But the aliens were already standing up, moving toward the airlock with urgent steps. Ambassador Zekthar paused at the door and turned back to the confused humans. Do not leave your solar system, he said, his voice tight with fear. Do not send any ships beyond your borders. We will contact you soon. The airlock door closed behind them with a final hiss, leaving the three humans alone in the conference room, staring at each other in complete confusion. What just happened? Amy Foster asked over the intercom. Jake looked at the empty chairs, where their alien visitors had been sitting just moments before. I have no idea, he said quietly. But I don't think it's good. Outside the window, the alien ship was already moving away from the station, its blue lights now flashing in rapid, urgent patterns. Whatever Jake had said when he told them Earth's name, it had changed everything. Ambassador Zekthar rushed through the corridors of his ship, his forearms working frantically on his portable database device. The red warning lights continued to flash, and each flash made his compound eyes hurt. Behind him, shine of distant stars glowed with worried yellow light, while flowing wind-through caverns swirled in tight, nervous circles inside his containment suit. Contact Nexus Prime immediately, Zekthar ordered as they reached the ship's communication center. Priority, Alpha emergency code. The ship's computer responded with a series of musical tones. Within seconds, a holographic image appeared showing the grand chamber of the Galactic Council headquarters. Council leader Mordun, an ancient being who looked like a floating jellyfish made of starlight, materialized in the projection. Ambassador Zekthar, your emergency signal has caused quite a stir, Mordun said, his voice carrying the weight of thousands of years. What could possibly require a priority Alpha alert? Zekthar held up his database device, his hands shaking slightly. The beings on Terra 3, they told us their planet's real name. When I entered it into the translation matrix, the system activated ancient warning protocols. The council leader's glowing form pulsed with concern. What name did they give you? They call their world Earth. Zekthar whispered. The effect was immediate. Mordun's ethereal form flickered and dimmed. In the background of the holographic projection, other council members could be heard making sounds of alarm and fear. Historian Vexana to the chamber immediately, Mordun commanded. Access the deepest archive levels. Search for all records containing the word Earth in any language or translation. While they waited, Zekthar reviewed the warning message that had appeared on his device. The text was written in the old galactic script, a language so ancient that most modern beings couldn't read it without computer help. The translation is coming through now, Zekathar reported. It says, Death World Prime, Sol System, Quarantine Level Maximum, Approach Forbidden by Order of the Ancient Council. Last update, 12,000 galactic years ago. Council historian Vexana arrived in the chamber. She was a member of the Memory Keepers, a species that lived for millions of years and dedicated their lives to preserving knowledge. Her body looked like a walking tree made of silver metal, with thousands of small crystal nodes that stored information. Accessing deepest archives now, Vexana announced. The crystal nodes on her body began to glow as she searched through layer after layer of ancient data. Found it, the records are extensive. Tell us everything, Morden demanded. Vex quote Anna quote's voice became formal, taking on the tone used for reading historical records. Solar System designation Sol 1. Third planet originally catalogued as Terra 3, later known by inhabitant designation Earth, later classified as Death World Prime. Home to species designation Humans or Terrans. Classification Extreme Hazard, Quarantine Permanent. Back on Earth's orbital station Alpha, Dr. Lisa Carter was studying the alien technology left behind in the conference room. The aliens had departed so quickly that Ambassador Zekathar had forgotten his translation device on the table. Jake, you need to see this, she called to Captain Morrison, who was pacing the room like a caged animal. What is it? Jake asked, walking over to where Lisa was examining the device with a portable scanner. I've been analyzing the electromagnetic patterns this thing was giving off, she explained. Look at these readings when the ambassador said our planet's name. The scanner's display showed a dramatic spike in the device's energy output the moment Jake had said Earth. It's like the machine had some kind of panic attack, Lisa continued. But here's the really weird part. I'm picking up biological stress indicators too. Admiral Ben Hughes joined them at the table. What kind of stress indicators? The kind that suggest ancestral trauma, Lisa replied, frowning at her readings. It's like their species has a genetic memory of something terrible related to our planet. Meanwhile, historian Vexana continued reading from the ancient archives. 12,000 years ago, the beings from Earth possessed technology far beyond their apparent development level. They could travel between stars, but more disturbing, they could survive in environments that would kill any other known species. Survive how? Asked Council Leader Morden. They thrived on worlds we classified as uninhabitable. Toxic atmospheres, extreme radiation, gravity wells that would crush most beings. To them, these were merely inconvenient. They called themselves explorers and helpers, but their very existence was unnatural. Ambassador Zekathar felt a chill run through his insectoid body. What happened to them? They spread across the galaxy rapidly, Vexana continued. Wherever they went, they established colonies and began what they called terraforming, reshaping dead worlds to support life. To other species, this seemed like an invasion of the natural order. The crystal being, shine of distant stars, pulsed with worried blue light. How did the galaxy respond? Fear, Vexana said simply. Fear and eventually war. The Great Silence War, it was called. But here is where the records become strange. The humans did not fight as conquerors typically do. Instead, they began withdrawing from their colonies. Withdrawing? Morden asked, surprised. Yes. Rather than fight a war that would destroy countless worlds, the humans chose to retreat back to their home system. The final record indicates that they promised to remain in the Sol system and never again venture into galactic space. And they kept that promise for 12,000 years? Zekathar asked, hardly believing it. According to our records, yes. The Sol system was marked as quarantined and no ships were detected leaving it for millennia. Many believed the humans had gone extinct or had destroyed themselves. On Earth, Jake Morrison was trying to re-establish communication with the alien ship, but his attempts were being ignored. Finally, a transmission came through, not from Ambassador Zekathar's ship, but from somewhere much farther away. "Attention beings of Earth," the message began in perfect English. "This is Supreme Chancellor Morden of the Galactic Council. Maintain your current position within your solar system. Do not attempt to send any vessels beyond your planetary boundaries. A council fleet is being assembled and will arrive at your system within 3 galactic days." The transmission cut off, leaving Jake, Lisa, and Ben staring at each other in growing alarm. "That didn't sound like a welcome wagon," Ben said grimly. "Jake," Lisa said quietly, looking at her scanner readings again. "I think we're in serious trouble. These readings suggest that our name, Earth, triggered some kind of ancient warning system." Jake walked back to the window, looking out at the stars that suddenly seemed much less friendly than they had an hour ago. "But we've never been to space before. We just invented faster-than-light communication 6 months ago. How could we be a threat to anyone?" "Maybe," Lisa said thoughtfully. "We haven't been to space before recently. But what if humans were out there a long time ago?" Back on Nexus Prime, Council Leader Morden was addressing the full Galactic Council. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered in emergency session. "The Deathworlders have returned," he announced, and the chamber filled with sounds of fear from dozens of different species. "After 12,000 years of silence, they have once again reached for the stars. We must decide how to respond." "Are they the same as their ancestors?" asked a delegate from the Crystalline Federation. "Unknown," Morden replied. "But they still live on Earth, a world so hostile that life should not exist there at all. If they have maintained their ancestors' abilities, they may be more dangerous now than they ever were before." "What do we do?" called out another delegate. More "S ethereal form, pulsed with ancient authority. "We prepare for the possibility that humanity has returned to reclaim their place in the galaxy. And we pray that this time, we can find a way to coexist with the beings from Deathworld Prime." The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if the nightmares of the ancient past had truly returned. 3 days passed like a nightmare for the people of Earth. Captain Jake Morrison had barely slept, spending most of his time coordinating with Earth's various space agencies and military forces. The alien message about an approaching council fleet had sent waves of panic across the planet. Admiral Ben Hughes stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense platform, studying the sensor readings that made his heart sink. Red dots filled the display screen at the edge of the solar system. More ships than Earth had ever imagined could exist. "How many?" Jake asked, joining Ben at the command console. "Our computers stopped counting at 300, Ben replied grimly. "They're still arriving." Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her research station where she had been working non-stop since the aliens left. "I've been analyzing the translation device they left behind. Jake, I don't think this is just about us joining their council anymore." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "The device contains fragments of historical data," Lisa explained, pointing to her computer screen. "I've been trying to translate some of it. The words I keep seeing are Deathworld and the Return, and something that translates roughly as Ancient Enemy." Before Jake could respond, every communication system on the station suddenly activated at once. A massive holographic image filled the main display, an alien being unlike any they had seen before. It looked like a jellyfish made of living starlight, floating in space without any visible technology. "People of Earth," the being spoke, its voice somehow beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "I am Supreme Chancellor Morden of the Galactic Council. I have ruled this galaxy for over 50,000 of your years, and I remember the last time your species walked among the stars." Jake stepped forward, trying to keep his voice steady. "Supreme Chancellor, I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We don't understand why your fleet has come here. We only wanted to join your council peacefully." "Peacefully," Morden repeated, and there was something like bitter laughter in his voice. "That is what your ancestors said as well, before they began reshaping the galaxy to their will." "Our ancestors?" Lisa interrupted, unable to contain her scientific curiosity despite the danger. "But humans have never left Earth before now." The Chancellor's form pulsed with ancient light. "Dr. Carter, is it not? Your people's memory is short, but ours is long. 12,000 years ago, humans spread across this galaxy like a plague. You called yourselves explorers, but you were something far more dangerous. Admiral Hughes activated Earth's defense protocols, knowing they were useless against such overwhelming force, but unable to just stand there helpless. What exactly are you accusing us of? Of being what you are, Morden replied. Deathworlders. Beings who should not exist, who thrive where others die, who see opportunity where others see only death. On Earth's surface, governments around the world were in emergency sessions. President Martinez of the Americas Federation had just finished, speaking with the leaders of the European Union and the Asian Collective. All of Earth's defense forces were being mobilized, though everyone knew it would make little difference against a galactic armada. Back on the orbital station, Jake was trying to understand the accusations being made against humanity. Supreme Chancellor, if humans were in space before, why don't we remember? Why did we start over as a primitive civilization? Morden's ethereal form dimmed slightly, as if the question brought up painful memories. Because your ancestors made a choice. When the galaxy united against them in the Great Silence War, they could have fought. They could have conquered us all. Instead, they chose to retreat to your homeworld and forget. Forget what? Dr. Carter asked. How to build ships that could fly through stellar storms. How to survive in the vacuum of space without protection. How to terraform dead worlds in months instead of millennia. How to adapt to any environment in the galaxy and thrive there. Lisa's scientific mind was racing. Are you saying humans are naturally adapted to survive in extreme environments? Naturally adapted? Morden's form brightened with what might have been surprise. Child, you live on a Class 12 death world. Your planet has weather that could kill most galactic species instantly. Your gravity would crush visitors from gas worlds. Your atmosphere is poison to half the council races. Yet you call it home and think it is normal. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he began to understand. You're afraid of us because we can survive things that would kill you. We are afraid because history taught us to be afraid, Morden replied. Your ancestors didn't conquer through war. They conquered through existence. They went to worlds we had given up for dead and brought them to life. They rescued species from dying planets by moving them to worlds we thought were uninhabitable. They made us feel small and weak simply by being themselves. Dr. Carter was pulling up geological and biological data about Earth on her computer. The radiation levels that would kill most life form, we call that a sunny day. The atmospheric pressure that would crush gas-based beings, that's normal to us. The temperature ranges that would freeze or burn most species, we just call that weather. Admiral Hughes was beginning to see the bigger picture. They're not afraid of our weapons or our technology. They're afraid of our biology. Precisely, Morden confirmed. And now you have returned to space with 12,000 years of additional evolution behind you. We do not know if you have become more dangerous or if you have somehow become less than your ancestors. Jake made a decision that would change everything. He activated Earth's general broadcast system, sending his words not just to the Chancellor but to every ship in the alien fleet. Supreme Chancellor, members of the Galactic Council, people of Earth, I want to show you something. He gestured to Dr. Carter, who brought up a display showing Earth's rescue services. These are our emergency response teams. When disasters happen, earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions, radiation leaks, these people run toward the danger, not away from it. The display showed human rescue workers entering burning buildings, diving into frozen oceans, working in radioactive zones, climbing mountains in storms that would ground aircraft. We do this because, to us, the most important thing is not our own safety. The most important thing is that nobody gets left behind. Admiral Hughes added his own footage. Military rescue operations in space, human astronauts working outside their ships in conditions that would kill unprotected beings in seconds. If our ancestors scared you, Jake continued, maybe it wasn't because they wanted to conquer. Maybe it was because they wanted to help, and they were willing to go places and do things that seemed impossible to everyone else. Morden was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful rather than threatening. Your words are similar to what your ancestors said. They claimed they were explorers and helpers. But help from those who cannot be harmed feels like dominance to those who live in constant danger. Dr. Carter had an idea. What if we could prove our intentions? What if there was some way to show that humans today are the same as our ancestors? People who run toward danger to help others, not to conquer them. How would you prove such a thing? Morden asked, before anyone could answer. Alarm klaxons began sounding throughout the station. Lieutenant Amy Foster's voice came over the intercom, tight with urgency. Captain Morrison, we're receiving a distress signal from the Kepler system. A solar flare is about to sterilize 3 inhabited worlds. The Council evacuation fleet can't get close enough due to radiation levels. Jake looked at the massive alien fleet surrounding Earth, then at his own small defense force. He made the most important decision in human history. Admiral Hughes, prepare our ships for immediate departure to the Kepler system. Jake, we can't leave Earth undefended, Ben protested. We're not abandoning Earth, Jake replied, looking directly at Supreme Chancellor Morden's holographic form. We're showing the galaxy who we really are. Morden's ethereal body pulsed, with sudden understanding and something that might have been fear. You would fly into a radiation storm that will kill you to save people you have never met. That's what humans do, Jake said simply. It's what we've always done. And maybe now you'll understand why our ancestors scared you so much. The Chancellor realized that humanity's return to the galaxy was about to be tested in the most dangerous way possible, and despite himself he found he was curious to see what these descendants of the ancient Deathworlders would choose to do when faced with impossible odds. The answer would either confirm every galactic fear about humanity or change the galaxy's understanding of them forever. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been working in the deep ice caves of Antarctica for 3 days straight, ever since the alien crisis began. As Earth's leading archaeologist, she had been part of a small team investigating strange readings that ground-penetrating radar had detected beneath the ice sheet. Elena, you need to come see this, called out Dr. Kevin Park, her research partner. His voice echoed strangely in the massive underground chamber they had discovered. Elena made her way through the perfectly preserved corridor, her flashlight, beam dancing across walls that seemed to be made of some kind of advanced metal and crystal combination. The architecture was clearly human, but unlike anything from known history. Look at this, Kevin said, pointing his light at a series of symbols carved into the wall. These aren't ancient symbols from any civilization we know about, but they're definitely human-made. Elena studied the markings carefully. Kevin, I think we've found something that's going to change everything we know about human history. Meanwhile, in space above Earth, the tension between the human fleet and the massive Galactic Council Armada was reaching a breaking point. Captain Jake Morrison's small force of 12 Earth ships was preparing to depart for the Kepler system rescue mission, while over 300 alien vessels surrounded them. Supreme Chancellor Morden had been silent for several minutes, clearly debating something important with his advisors. Finally, his ethereal form brightened again. Captain Morrison, he said, his ancient voice carrying new weight. Before you depart on this rescue mission, there is something you should know about your species. What do you mean? Jake asked. We have been reviewing the ancient records more carefully. Your ancestors did not simply leave the galaxy and forget their technology. They left behind archives, information stores that they hoped their descendants would find when they were ready. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her research station with sudden excitement. Archives? What kind of information? The truth about why humans left the galaxy, Morden replied, and the truth about what you really are. Back in Antarctica, Elena Rodriguez had found the activation mechanism for what appeared to be a massive data storage system. As she touched the crystal panel, the entire chamber filled with soft blue light. Suddenly, a holographic figure appeared in front of her. A human man in clothing that looked futuristic but somehow familiar. The recording began to speak in perfect English. If you are seeing this message, it means humanity has once again reached for the stars, the figure said. My name is Commander Alex Brennan, and I am leaving this record in the hope that someday, our descendants will understand what we were and why we chose to leave." Elena gasped and immediately activated her communication device to contact the orbital station. "Jake, you need to see this. I've found human archives that are over 12,000 years old." The holographic figure of Commander Brennan continued his message. "We called ourselves explorers, but the galaxy saw us as something else. They called us Deathworlders, and they were afraid of us not because we were evil, but because we were different." On the orbital station, Dr. Carter was analyzing data from the alien translation device when she made a shocking discovery. "Jake, I've been wrong about Earth's classification. We're not just living on a dangerous planet. We're living on what the galaxy considers an impossible planet." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, dividing his attention between Lisa's research and the growing crisis with the alien fleet. "Earth's gravity is 3 times stronger than the galactic standard for habitable worlds," Lisa explained, pulling up data on her screen. "Our atmospheric pressure would crush most alien species. The radiation we receive from our sun would kill them in minutes. Our temperature ranges would freeze or cook most galactic life forms." Commander Brennan's holographic message continued playing in the Antarctic chamber. "Earth is what xenobiologists classify as a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile to life that it should be sterile. Yet we evolved here. We adapted to survive here, and that adaptation made us capable of surviving almost anywhere else in the galaxy." Elena Rodriguez was frantically taking notes as the ancient human commander explained humanity's true history. "We didn't set out to be conquerors," Brennan said. "We were explorers who wanted to help. When we found species dying on failing worlds, we moved them to planets that other races had declared uninhabitable. To us, these were just planets with interesting weather." Supreme Chancellor Morden watched as the human ships prepared for their rescue mission to the Kepler system. Despite his fear of humanity, he found himself curious about what these modern humans would do when faced with impossible odds. "Chancellor," Ambassador Zekthar reported from his nearby ship, "our medical scanners are analyzing the human crew members. The readings are disturbing." "How so?" Morden asked. "Their bone density is 4 times galactic standard. Their muscle fibers are designed for extreme stress loads. Their blood carries oxygen in a way that would allow them to survive in near-vacuum conditions for short periods." Commander Brennan's message in the Antarctic archives was reaching its climax. "The Great Silence War began when several species demanded we be quarantined to Earth. They said our very existence made them feel inferior and afraid. We tried to explain that we only wanted to help, but they saw our help as a form of conquest." Elena gasped as she understood the implications. "We weren't conquerors. We were the galaxy's rescue service." "The final battle never came," Brennan continued. "We realized that our presence in the galaxy, no matter how good our intentions, was causing more harm than good. So we made a choice that no other species in galactic history had ever made." Dr. Carter, monitoring the message from Muo Space, felt her heart racing as she began to understand. "We chose to leave," Brennan said. "We abandoned our colonies, destroyed our starfaring technology, and returned to Earth. We used genetic memory suppression to ensure our descendants would start fresh, hoping that someday they might be accepted as equals rather than feared as monsters." Jake Morrison felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. "So we're not returning conquerors. We're the descendants of people who gave up an empire because they didn't want to be feared." Supreme Chancellor Morden had been listening to the human transmissions from Antarctica. His ethereal form pulsed with new understanding and old guilt. "Captain Morrison," he said slowly, "there is something the Galactic Council has hidden from its own people for 12,000 years. Your ancestors did not leave because we defeated them in war. They left because we were too afraid to accept their help." Admiral Ben Hughes looked up from his tactical displays. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that the galaxy drove away its greatest protectors because we were too proud to accept help from beings who were stronger than us," Morden admitted. "And now, when faced with a crisis that our own ships cannot handle, those same protectors are volunteering to fly into certain death to save strangers." The rescue fleet alarm continued to sound as reports came in from the Kepler system. 3 billion alien lives hung in the balance as a massive solar flare approached their worlds. Jake made his decision. Admiral Hughes, launch all rescue ships, full speed to Kepler system. Jake, Ben said quietly, the radiation levels there will kill us. Maybe, Jake replied, but doing nothing will definitely kill them. As the small human fleet departed Earth's orbit, heading toward certain death to save alien lives they had never met, Supreme Chancellor Morden finally understood the choice the galaxy had made 12,000 years ago. They had driven away their guardians because they were afraid of beings who saw hope, where others saw only death, who found solutions where others found only problems, and who would risk everything to save anyone. Now those guardians were returning, and the galaxy was about to learn whether they were the same people who had once chosen exile over conquest. The answer would determine not just the fate of 3 alien worlds, but the future of human galactic relations forever. The human rescue fleet reached the edge of the Kepler system just as the massive solar flare began building toward its deadly peak. Captain Amy Foster, leading the rescue squadron, watched her radiation sensors climb to levels that should have been instantly fatal. All ships, this is Foster, she announced over the communication channels. Radiation levels are now at 400 times lethal dose for most galactic species. Human crews switched to emergency protocols. Behind her, the massive Galactic Council evacuation fleet hung at what they considered a safe distance, still too far from the 3 doomed worlds to be of any help. Their ship simply couldn't get closer without being destroyed by the radiation storm. On the lead evacuation ship, Commander Torval of the Crystalline Federation watched in amazement and horror as the human vessels flew directly into the radiation field that had forced his own fleet to retreat. How are they still alive? He asked his science officer. Unknown, Commander. Our sensors show radiation levels that should have killed any known biological life form 10 minutes ago. Captain Jake Morrison, coordinating the rescue from Earth, watched the operation with growing pride and fear. His people were pushing their ships and themselves to the absolute limit, flying through space conditions that no other species could survive. Amy, what's your status? He asked over the long-range communication system. Captain Foster's voice came back steady despite the circumstances. We've reached the first planet, Jake. Beginning evacuation of the Zephyrian colonies. Their cities are built underground, which is giving us some protection, but we're going to have to work fast. Dr. Lisa Carter, monitoring the biological data from the rescue ships, was amazed by what she was seeing. Jake, the human crews are actually adapting to the radiation exposure in real time. Their cellular repair systems are working overtime, but they're surviving levels that should be impossible. On the first planet, human rescue teams were working with desperate efficiency. The Zephyrians were a delicate butterfly-like species who had built beautiful crystal cities beneath their world's surface. But even underground, the approaching solar flare would cook their planet's atmosphere and kill them all. Lieutenant Danny Walsh led his rescue team through the crystal corridors, helping terrified Zephyrian families into specially modified evacuation pods. The aliens were beautiful but fragile, their wings as thin as glass, their bodies barely able to handle standard galactic gravity. Easy, we've got you, Danny told a frightened Zephyrian child whose wings were trembling with fear. We're going to get you somewhere safe. The child's mother looked at Danny with compound eyes full of wonder. How can you creatures survive this radiation storm? She asked in broken galactic standard. Danny smiled as he carefully lifted the family into an evacuation pod. Lady, where we come from, this is just a sunny day with a little extra breeze. Meanwhile, on the second planet, Dr. Kevin Martinez was coordinating the medical evacuation of a Crystalline Federation research station. The crystal beings were even more vulnerable to radiation than the Zephyrians, their transparent bodies beginning to crack and dim from exposure even underground. Human ship, this is Station Commander Gleam of Morning Light, came a transmission, filled with pain. We cannot survive much longer, our people are dying. We're on our way, Commander, Kevin replied, pushing his rescue ship through radiation levels that were making his instruments scream warnings. Prepare your people for immediate evacuation. As Kevin's team reached the research station, they found crystal beings barely holding themselves together, their normally bright bodies flickering like dying light bulbs. "By the ancient lights," Commander Gleam of Morning Light whispered as Kevin and his team arrived in full environmental suits. "You are walking through radiation that should have killed you instantly." "Yeah, well, humans are hard to kill," Kevin said with a grin, carefully helping the fragile crystal being toward the evacuation ship. "It's what we do." Back in space, Supreme Chancellor Mordun was watching the rescue operation with growing amazement. His ancient consciousness, which had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, was witnessing something unprecedented. "They are not just surviving," he said to Ambassador Zekthar. "They are thriving in conditions that would annihilate our best protected vessels." Captain Amy Foster and her team had reached the third planet, where a gas-form species called the Wind Dancers lived in floating cities high in the atmosphere. The approaching solar flare would strip away their planet's atmosphere entirely, leaving them to die in the vacuum of space. "This is the tricky part," Amy announced to her crew as they approached the floating cities. "We need to create temporary atmospheric envelopes for beings who are literally made of gas." Chief Engineer Pete Johnson had worked out a solution using modified cargo containers filled with the appropriate gas mixture. "It's not elegant, but it should keep them alive long enough to get them to safety." As human rescue teams worked frantically to save the Wind Dancers, the aliens couldn't understand how these strange solid beings could function in the deadly radiation storm. "What manner of creatures are you?" asked Elder Flow of Distant Winds as Pete carefully guided his gaseous form into a protective container. "We're from a place called Earth," Pete replied, checking the container's seals. "Where we come from, this kind of weather just means you might want to wear sunscreen." The solar flare reached its peak just as the last evacuations were completing. The three planets were bathed in radiation levels that sterilized their surfaces and stripped away large portions of their atmospheres. But every single living being had been rescued. The human fleet, battered but intact, began the journey back to the Galactic Council evacuation ships. Their hulls were scorched, their systems damaged, but they had accomplished the impossible. Supreme Chancellor Mordun waited as the rescue ships docked with the Council evacuation fleet. When Captain Amy Foster stepped out of her ship, her face was tired but determined, her hair singed from radiation exposure but her eyes bright with success. "Report, Captain," Mordun said, his ethereal form pulsing with emotions he hadn't felt in millennia. "Mission accomplished, Chancellor," Amy replied simply. "All civilians evacuated. No casualties." "How?" Mordun asked. "How did you survive radiation? Levels that should have killed you a dozen times over?" Amy looked at the Chancellor with the same expression her ancestors might have worn 12,000 years ago. "Because somebody needed help, and we were the only ones who could give it." Dr. Lisa Carter's analysis of the mission data provided the scientific answer. "The human crews suffered radiation exposure that would have killed any other known species," she reported. "But their DNA repair mechanisms enhanced bone density, and adaptive immune systems allowed them to not just survive but continue working effectively. The rescued aliens, Zephyrians, crystal beings, and Wind Dancers were being treated in the Council medical ships, but they all asked the same question. How had the humans survived to save them? Jake Morrison provided the answer in a broadcast that went out to the entire galaxy. "We survived because we evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day," he said. "Our planet has weather that would destroy most worlds, gravity that would crush most beings, and radiation levels that would sterilize most life forms. But we call it home. We didn't become strong so we could conquer others," Jake continued. "We became strong so we could help others, so we could go places no one else can go, do things no one else can do, and save people no one else can save." Supreme Chancellor Mordun made the most important decision of his 50,000-year reign. "Captain Morrison, Dr. Carter, Admiral Hughes, I formally request that Earth join the Galactic Council not as a probationary member, but as the Council's Emergency Response Division." "Emergency Response Division?" Jake asked. "You would be the beings we call when disaster strikes and conventional rescue is impossible," Mordun explained. "When worlds are dying, when people are trapped where others cannot go, when the galaxy faces threats that require someone willing to walk into certain death to save strangers. Dr. Carter smiled. So instead of fearing us because we're dangerous, you want to work with us because we're dangerous in useful ways. Precisely, Morden replied. Your ancestors left because we were too afraid to accept help from beings stronger than ourselves. I will not make that mistake again. The signing of the new Terran Accords took place not in a formal council chamber, but in the medical bay, where human rescue workers were still helping to treat the aliens they had saved. The document established Earth as both a full council member and the galaxy's official rescue service. Admiral Ben Hughes was put in charge of the new Galactic Emergency Response Service, with stations strategically placed throughout council space. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led the effort to rediscover lost human colony worlds, many of which had been abandoned for 12 millennia, but might still be habitable. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned rescue ship Guardian, leading a joint human-alien crew to investigate a distress signal from an unexplored region of space. Beside him stood Ambassador Zekthar, who had requested transfer to the Emergency Response Division. Why did you want to work with us, Ambassador? Jake asked, as they approached the mysterious signal.